The crypto market has been severely punished the past 6 weeks. Now, is the bull market over, or is this just an event that will wipe out the bears in a bear trap? Today, we're going to dig deeper into price action to see what we can see. And then we'll take a look at some different altcoins to see what we think about their prices. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel and our family. Now, have you ever worried about money? What if you learned to use your money to work for you just right so that you never had to worry about money again? Now, I grew up poor in life, secondhand clothes, bologna sandwiches every day for lunch. And it isn't bad to grow up that way, but I realized that the true value of money is that it allows us options in life, and it can decrease that gnawing worry we carry of how do we meet all these financial obligations. And perhaps then on top of that, be able to afford the nice things we sometimes want and the travel we definitely want. After a few months of being in crypto, when I started 8 years ago, I recognized crypto investment done right had the most amazing, massive potential to allow us to get to a place where we don't ever have to worry about money again. Now, after 8 years of being in crypto, I know that crypto can and will change your finances and your life, but there's a huge catch. It only works for you if you do it right. And while being in crypto, I learned something very scary. You see, I know people who have been here even longer than me, longer than the 8 years, but aren't even rich yet. And they are still stuck pretty much where they started. I learned 89% of people in crypto don't make meaningful money or flat out lose money, and it's because they are doing it wrong. Now, another 6% of people make money, but just a little. Only 5% of crypto investors make life-changing gains that take them to the lifestyle we all dreamed about as kids. Now, haven't we all learned that in life, if you find what the successful people are doing and you copy exactly how they do things, you start having their results? So I focus 100% of everything on doing what those 5%ers did. And I put it into practice myself. And in 4 years, by 2021, using those principles, I was able to fire my day job, move to the city I wanted, and put myself in a position to never have to work again if I didn't want to. And here in this channel is where I share what I learned. I share my research on the companies I like and why I like them. Though today is our fun price analysis day with Paul from DEVVE joining us, and we say whether we would buy, wait, or sell on specific things. This is not advice telling you what to do. We're just telling you what our thoughts are and why we think the things that we do. You're going to make your own decisions based on your own research. But these are fun days. I know the audience loves it. So welcome. We are live today. Remember, surrounding yourself by good people who understand how to invest right, well, it does augment your gains. And you are doing it right. So if you haven't already, make it rain on that like button and help me welcome Paul from DEVVE to the show.
Hey, well, it's great to be here, and apologies for the miss last week. I had something come up just as I was about to set up for the show, and it was something I couldn't avoid. Completely my fault. My apologies to everyone. And frustratingly, it was a week that I was looking very closely at the OMI chart and thinking, that's holding up really well. That's holding up extremely well, given the sell-off. And also just looking at how the markets have just got so negative and what that might mean. So, what can we do? I'd love to be on every day and do something like that, but obviously the time doesn't allow. So apologies for that, but here we are, and we can look at the markets from here.
Yeah, we'll have to add OMI to the list of what to look at today.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's worth looking at for sure.
Yeah, it's been running up quite a bit from the, well, it pretty much went 3x from the recent low. So
yeah. Well, I know that things are going to be quiet because you've got a quiet week. I know you're in Canada, but people in America are going to be on their Thanksgiving week. I don't know. Do they have the same in Canada? I'm not sure, but
in October.
Is it October? Oh, yes, yes, yes. Now, I think you said that to me last year, and I forgot until this year. So it was a whole year ago when you told me that. So, so yeah, we've got that, and obviously the comments are going to be quiet, and people are going to be quiet because crypto's going the wrong way. So we're going to get fewer people involved, and the fear and greed index is at rock bottom levels, which is completely understandable. It's been a horrific market, and we're just going to have to see who's standing at the end of it, really.
Now, Justin asked a good question. Have the chances of the top already being in, are they greater than they were last week?
Yeah, that's a really good question. You see, there are certain things that indicate a major top, and one of those things is a fragmentation of riskier assets. And Bitcoin, you could say, and some of the cryptocurrencies are the riskiest of the assets out there. So this could be a leading indicator that we're nearer a top in the broader financial market space. The only thing that doesn't look right is that the fear in the equity markets were matched by the fear in the cryptocurrency markets. And as you're about to see, the equity markets have bounced back pretty fast and pretty hard. And it doesn't feel like, it doesn't seem from a sentiment point of view, and that's why I say feel, because feel you can't really judge, but sentiment you can judge. It doesn't feel like we've had a kind of barnstorming end to the trend. So I don't think so. I don't think that the chances of necessarily, um, I don't think they're greater, but at any point on the trend, I'm always looking to see if I'm wrong. And look, I could be wrong. That is possible. Maybe we're not going to see the market go back up, but given that other assets are rising, and another component being the dollar looks like it's going to finally start to fall again, and there is more to go in that trend, I do believe that there should be some pickup in the broader crypto assets. So let's see how that plays out. The pullback in equities definitely looks like a buying opportunity. The pullback in Bitcoin was a similar percentage pullback that we've seen before, even though it was very brutal and it's in numbers bigger. In percentage, it's the same. It's about 30 odd percent. The last big pullback was about 30%. And so it's not like it's not done this before and recovered. It's already started to recover. So there are a few things. It's an interesting question in the sense that I don't look at the markets like is the chance greater than last week. I'm always looking for what is telling me that the trend has ended. I'm definitely wrong about expecting it to go up, or what is supporting that macro view. And definitely at the moment, it's what I would have said last week was, look, things aren't looking great in the short term, but we are still much higher than we were a few years ago. The trend is still up. There's still plenty to look for on the upside, and there's some important support levels coming up. So if equities were turning down as well and the dollar was strengthening and we were seeing yields rise and all those things happening, I would be pretty worried at this point. But at the moment, I'm thinking that this is a consolidation and it has the potential to still rally. So I'm not saying that the fat lady's not singing yet, in my view. But that's not nothing's 100%.
Have you ever seen a major top when the fear is so high so that most people actually are getting that the top is correct? Or has it
No,
always been that
no.
greed is higher than fear? Like
Yeah,
every time when there is a major top, that greed is higher than fear.
yeah. I mean, it's a good question. I mean, tops tend to play out over a long period as well. So usually major tops don't just hit and then that's it and then off we go and it's a crash. It doesn't work like that. Usually you hit a top. I mean, when we look at the charts, I'll show you a bit more about what could be happening, but there's usually a bit of a lead time. But in terms of sentiment, for something to effectively kill the bull market in Bitcoin, and if we just talk about Bitcoin, and leave everything else to one side for the moment, there's usually more well, I've not seen a top happen when sentiment is this bearish, and so that's why I'm kind of leaning towards it not being over. Usually it's like if anybody says that there's a top there, they're called crazy, and it's like everything's go go go. Could argue maybe we had a bit of that recently with Trump getting in, and perhaps, but I don't know. It just didn't feel like there was enough of it, and certainly not in the altcoin space. So, and also that period of being overly bullish during the dot-com boom, it was pedal to the metal for about a year of absolutely craziness, like crazy prices. With gold, when it hit its high in 2011, that you couldn't find a bear for years. It took a good few years, and everyone was super 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 bullish. So, and it's happened with other tops as well. There's usually far more there's far clearer bullish signals. So that's why I don't. I mean, if we look at the Fear and Greed Index at the moment on Bitcoin, it is trading at 15, extreme fear, which is interesting. Given again, if you look at where it is in the long-term trend, which is what people forget, the long-term trend started around 15,000. I mean, even longer-term trend obviously started around less than $1, of course. But we go back to the previous Sam Bankman-Fried low, where everybody said the trend was over around $15,000. Pack up your bags, let's go home. It's now at over $80,000, and that's it. Apparently, it's over again. So yeah, that's a lot lower than over 108,000. But these are we've looked at this before. This is the volatility that comes with this space. It's crazy vol. If you were going to try and shake everybody out of the market before a big run, this is exactly how you would do it. And this is kind of what the market does. It's shaking out anyone who's leveraged, for sure. So now we've got to see whether, I think from now will tell us a lot about where the next trend is coming from, because the equity markets are starting to recover, will most likely break into new all-time highs before the end of the year. And the dollar's going to start to go down again. Precious metals are starting to break out again. All the conditions for Bitcoin to respond positively. I did notice. I mean, we talked about MicroStrategy, and it broke an important top, and that was another signal that came between last week and the week before that, where we discussed it. Some of the tech has come off. I noticed that Meta had a bit of a correction, and a few kind of strong tech plays had corrected, but not everything. And it looks like things are going back up again. So perhaps people are just piling into AI because it is a hot area, and anything that's AI related is just going up, and they're seeing that as where all the money goes. But once money's made there and people take their profits, I don't see why it won't filter back into cryptocurrencies. And there's another element of this. There are long-term players who will say, look, that's it. I've been holding for years and now it's time to take profits. Fair enough. But in my experience, that happens, and then the market just charges up again. And they, even like really smart people, are looking at it and going, hold on a minute. I've sold at X and it's now, 50% higher than X, and I should have held on. And then they end up getting caught, because that's ultimately what the market does. It kind of convinces everybody that they're wrong at any stage. So none of this guarantees a rally. And I will always say that I don't know anything for sure. I'm always looking at probabilities. And there is a chance we've seen the high, of course. It just doesn't, to me, it just doesn't feel right, but I would have to accept it if that is the case. But that wouldn't be my core strategy.
Yeah. I think this is turning out to be a bear trap. I don't know the way it came together for such a huge dip was intentionally a bear trap, but I think it's playing out that way, and a bunch of bears are going to get trapped in it and take out short positions because they're sure that it's over. And I don't think it is. I think there's a lot more to come from here. All the fundamentals are lining up for really a risk-on asset run next year. I think Trump appoints a new chairperson of the Fed, and that chairperson could be much more inclined to decrease interest rates by a lot, to increase quantitative easing. We've got probably the massive crypto legislation being passed soon. I think it's going to be all hands on deck coming up, and this is another shakeout to just panic people out of their positions before it really runs. And this is why so few people, like only 5%, do really, really well in crypto, because a lot of people get washed out during these things and they sell at lows, often below what they bought at, sometimes right before it runs really big. Let's take a look at some of the charts. What are some of the things you're following in some of the different markets, Paul?
So here we are. This is we start off with the Dow, right? So the Dow, this is the correction. This is the big panic that happened, and I'm showing you this because it's putting everything into context of we had like a global tech breakdown, didn't we, at the same time as all of this happening, and that's sort of the market leaps on whatever it can to justify what's happening in the markets. But if you compare this correction to the Bitcoin correction, obviously it's very, very minor, and that's why the Bitcoin correction looks and cryptocurrency correction looks kind of out of whack with what's going on with the rest of the markets. Again, that doesn't guarantee that Bitcoin will rally, but it does say that this trend is still looking good, and this is just a short-term correction. Now, we could draw this line in, and the thing with technical patterns is you don't predict them, or you don't call them until they're there, because most people are looking for tops, they're looking for the trend to end. But if it was to come back down, this line would play in importance, because we could be looking at some form of topping formation. But that's too early. It's only because it's been going effectively a little higher than sideways since September, and the time frame for a topping pattern is about 2 to 3 months. And if it was going to continue to consolidate around here, this would look more like a top. But actually, I don't think it is a top by the way it's going back up again, and by the way sentiment and fear has been playing out. It looks much more like that, likely that this is a consolidation. It's going to break into new highs. So the headline is equity markets still look like they're going up. The Dow Jones Transports, actually, this is one of the outlier type charts that nobody else would really look at. And I was looking at this thinking, this looks like it wants to break up, and that would be really unusual for that to happen if everything was collapsing. And it has broken into a new high, certainly almost for this year, but it's not going down. So that's breaking higher. NASDAQ, yeah, a lot of money in there, a lot of money being forced out as markets corrected, but that's still in an upward trend. Not calling the end of that as yet. Could well be a bear trap as that's gone down. The S&P, again, it's like this is effectively consolidation at worst. It could be a top, but it'd have to come back and break the 6,500. If it does that, yeah, we've got a top on our hands. We've got some serious situations going on here. But for the moment, the trend is still up, and the hardest thing to do is to go with that trend, and that's why it's most likely to keep going higher. So equity markets performing well, and I think will continue to do so. We're just seeing a bit of volatility. Now, we could look at the UK and the European markets. They've all come off aggressively. We've got a budget here, and everyone's saying the stock market's going to crash. It's actually done pretty well, and it's going up. It's rebounding quite fast. The European markets are the same. They've come off aggressively, and now they're jumping back again. So that's fairly typical of the bulls got taken out on a bull trap. The bears are getting taken out on a bear trap. Now we'll see where the money really is. But places like China, market's still going up, and Hong Kong, the trend is still bullish. Japan, that's had a correction, but that's still going up. Gold, that's looking really nice for another move higher. It's consolidated. Silver is just getting over $50. This looks like it's ready to rock. Platinum, palladium, other markets that I look at that probably nobody else is interested in, but I am. In terms of copper, which is very important to the global demand, that is consolidating, but that looks like it wants to break out. It's break higher rather than lower. So again, the macro scene is looking positive. Oil is going down, which is good because it makes shipping goods cheaper. It's better for everybody. So oil and energy is performing in the right direction to help the economy go in the direction it wants to go in. And if we look at the dollar, it's been playing around this 100 level. It's hit, it's come off. Look, it could still break higher. That's possible. We've got these rising lows here, and I want to see that pattern break, but it hasn't got through the 100. It has rejected it. And on a few scales, it's possibly ready to turn. So I don't think I feel completely comfortable until it breaks below this 97 level, which is this prior support. Once it's done that, I would feel much more comfortable about this being a top, but it's certainly not extending its gains. And if you look at how it's rallied when fear was pervading the markets, it's not taken out a prior high. So it's not like it's much higher than where it was before. It's gone up, and it was actually leading the move a little bit already. It was squeezing, and now it looks like it's getting ready to turn over. So if this starts to fall hard, I think we'll see a lot of risk on assets respond positively. One of the most important things that people are looking at, or we're looking at certainly, is short-term interest rates. They're not going up, they're going down. Still looks like the pressures to the downside. There was a short-term blip, and we had to take account of that short-term blip, but the pressure is still to the downside, even in the 10-year. So this is the 10-year US yields. They're behaving well around 4%. The 2-year money is trading at 3.5%. 6-month money is trading at 3.67%. And by the time of the next meeting, this may be even trading around 3.6, maybe to 3.5, implying that short-term rates are going to go even lower. So I think the chances of a short-term interest rate cut in the next meeting has gone up a lot, and market is only just starting to focus on that, whilst everybody's really bearish. So I might as well jump in with Bitcoin because that's the next on the list. And what could we be looking at here? Could this be some kind of major top? Well, yeah, of course it could. It's had this very vicious correction, but where it spiked its low is higher than this prior low. And at the moment, that's important because it's still keeping the trend upwards. Now, it's not much of a margin, but it is still a margin. And this was a big correction. This was the prior correction that was supposedly ending the trend, and actually this one too. So when we were here, people were saying the trend was over, and it wasn't. Up it went, and then it corrected all the way back to the top, and off it went. Now, it would have been great if it hadn't corrected quite so much, of course, but that's just the way the market is. But it's how it's responded, and the fact that it's rallied so aggressively from this low. There's still a lot of work for it to get out of the danger zone. So I'm not going to deny that. And we were looking at the potential for this to be a short-term top, and what would happen if it rebroke. That's part of technicals. It's like, well, this is my strategy, and this is what happens when it goes wrong. And you have a strategy for that too. So for the moment, the trend is still up. The sentiment is extremely negative. We'll just have to see how quickly, if at all, it does recover. If this was to be a top, then this could be part of a big left shoulder, big head, then it would rally and then fall again, and we'd have a big right shoulder. And that whole thing would comprise a major top, which could mean it trading back over 100,000 and then coming back again. And it would take until kind of the middle of next year for this to all play out. That is a possibility. But again, I said before that part of charting is not inventing patterns and saying this is what's here, which is what a lot of people do, and assuming that it's right. It's looking at possibilities, but letting the market tell you what's right. And at the moment, I think I've got to focus on the fact that we've had very sharp retracements and the market's recovered, and this could just be one of them. It is looking, more aggressive, and as I said at the top of the show, the fact that sentiment is so low for me is a very positive sign. So let's see how we build off this, and we're just going to have to take it week by week.
Yeah. Well, let's jump in to take a look at XRP and what's going on with XRP. Now, for those that are in our Rainmaker private Discord, you have to get access to it through joining Patreon to really get access to the Discord. Patreon's like the gatekeeper. But in the crypto adoption tab, that's where what is going on with XRP is being discussed. And there are fundamentally so many things going on with XRP as far as becoming the new payment rails for much of the world's payment system. And let's take a look at price. Though even we had a big spike after Trump was elected president, I suspect there is so much more to come here. Let's take a look at where it is now.
So again, it's like, where are we now compared to where we were before? And XRP, nobody was really interested in it when it was down here, and it broke out. We got this amazing move up to the prior high, a consolidation, and then it broke into a new high again, which ended up being a bull trap. And we're back down. I mean, obviously I was very bullish at this point because I have to be when the market takes out a high, but that's part of a strategy. You look at the parachute levels when the market turns around, and that's where you've got to get out. But looking at all of this price action, it has looked to me like this was consolidation ready to take another attempt at this prior high, because it's kind of hanging up or hanging around this top area of the range. This being the initial kind of driver to new highs or to significant levels. And you could say all attempts to rally have failed, but all attempts to push it down have failed. So we're kind of in this in-between phase. Now, what I need to see is acceleration of price action back up to the prior high. And where it's sitting now, it's kind of in a fairly neutral zone. It's not quite in the middle of the zone, but it's there or thereabouts. What I find important is that when it did spike all the way down to 1.4, it got hoovered up very quickly. So that tells me that the market is buying it down here, and whoever's buying it, did enough to change the direction, and they're probably looking at something that we're not. So for the moment, it would have to be a wait for me, because it's not something that I think will immediately jump tomorrow. If it does, great. But judging by the way the chart looks, it's kind of volatility. So if we take where we are here, 24th of November, a year ago, and look at where we are now, we're still around the same levels. So anything that's ultimately coming back to where it was a year ago is telling me that things are flat, and the volatility in between is quite hard to deal with. So do I buy it here, and where do I put my stop? Well, I'd have to put it all the way back down here, which is quite far away. But is it one that I think is important to keep an eye on, and which still has the potential to break into new highs? Yes, absolutely. This is actually kind of it in terms of where we should be seeing breakouts happening. We've seen the shakeout, we've seen the low tests. So now we've got to see which markets are going to lead the way up. And this would be in the frame as one of them that could well do that, because it's held up relatively well in its sector. So that's good. It's held up. But the next step is it's got a trend. So we're waiting for the trend. And that's why at the moment it's still in this waiting phase. But it's good to keep looking at it. And, we can ultimately look at everything. But for me, at this point, it's a wait.
Yeah, it isn't. I think, ready to break to the upside, though fundamentally so much going on here. Just want to go back a little historically, and what a lot of people don't know about XRP, because they've come into the crypto space in the last 4 years. So way back in 2017, XRP's market cap actually surpassed Bitcoin's market cap. In this run up here, where it went actually ever so briefly to about 360, it went absolutely crazy from about, well, earlier in the bear market, it was down to half a cent and went up to $3.60. So about, what's that, the 720x during that run. Incredible gains. And then the 2021 bull market was really, really interrupted by a lawsuit by the SEC against Ripple. Well, there's a lot of speculation and probably even reason to believe that that was politically targeting towards them, and that there were some competitors behind it. But that's all been cleared now. So I don't think in 2021 it reached the highs it would have otherwise reached. It's been cleared. But notice how in 2017, how it played out with this bump up here, and then it came back down before the major run. And that's what I think is happening here. This bump up first, establishes a new level, might trade sideways for a bit longer, and then have its bigger run a little bit later here. And so this is one to watch. I normally don't follow things that are such high market caps, because they just don't have such that kind of high potentials that I'm looking for. XRP, what I like about it is it's pretty clear to me, at least from my research, that it's going to be really the payment rails for a lot of transmittance of money across the world. And so foundationally, it's going to be hugely adopted and used. So I feel like the overall risk to it is fairly low. The potential upside, where can something like this go? Well, it's at $2.20. It can go to $25, which would be a 10x from here. It can go possibly to something like $100 or $200. Now, I don't know which of those will play out, but I like that even something with such a high market cap potentially has that kind of upside while having what I consider to be fairly low downside risk. So I do hold a little bit of XRP. I wish during the bear market I had put more into it when it was down below this 50-cent range. It was an amazingly good deal and a lot more potential for it to hit 100x from 50 cents than from $2. But at $2 still has big potential upside. I would rate it a buy. I would not expect that it's going to turn around and run up from here right away. I don't see that happening in the charts either. I think it's going to play out like I shared with you, as it had before, where it moves slow and trades sideways for a bit, and then it does a run up. Let's take a look at KAS, which has a little bit of interesting things happening.
Yeah, KAS in the short term, I think it does. In the big picture, I think the last time we looked at it, it was being contained by these two lines, this price action. And when you don't look at something every day and you come back to it, having not looked at it for a while, a few months or whatever, it is interesting to see how the patterns have played out. And what we would have been looking for is a break for it to be bullish, certainly is a break of this upper resistance line, because it was being compressed. Now, what happened was we got a break at the lower line. You see how quickly the market reacted to that, and it's been going down since then. Now, if we took out the most recent price action and said, look, what do you think of it here? I would have said, well, it's still bearish, but we have got support from this prior high and this zone as well, where you have to look at how these things kind of play out and repeat. Well, that's what we do technically. I mean, you don't have to, but that's what we do. So this zone is interesting. The market has reacted, and it's been quite a strong move, a big percentage move, which is probably why it's jumped on people's radars. But when you look at the trend from a big picture perspective, there's still a lot more work that it needs to do before I could turn around and say, this is a buy. But this is a good start. This is a very nice initial move. That here is the resistance of the most important major reversal point, and it's right on it right now. It looks like it's going to go through it. So it's trying to create a base. And for me, it would be a wait at this point, but I am interested in seeing how it's going to trade, whether it can get through this resistance zone. And then we'd be putting in these lower trend lines and seeing whether it can get through that. But there's no real reversal pattern for me to get my teeth into. I could say, if everything was moving up and this hadn't moved, I might say it might be worth a buy with a stop, but that's not the state of the market at this point. So I would be saying it's a wait. But definitely one to come back to in at least 2 weeks' time. I wouldn't want to see it 3 weeks' time all the way back up here, because that would be telling me that it's recovering strongly and that there's much more to go, especially if the macro scene is moving in the right direction.
Yeah, KAS was a really interesting one, and I wanted to take a look at this today because part of the goal of this channel is help people recognize and become exceptional traders. One of the patterns I want to really sear in your mind is that what goes up will come down, especially when it's going completely contrary to the trend. So if you look at this history, realize these dates. So this is January 2023. And look what this did during the middle of the bear market or later part of the bear market when everything else was way down. Everything else's charts looked almost the opposite of this. And there were a few in our Rainmaker family that made some great money from this. They had invested in KASPA way back here, and it went up during the bear market, like substantively. So realize it went from, if you had bought it all the way back here, it was at 0.2 cents and it went to over 20 cents. So that's 100x during the bear market. And what goes up doesn't go up for forever. So now it's had this really big retracement. And it's not a huge retracement, but a big one, going from 20 cents down to 5 cents. So it's lost 75% of its steam. And run doesn't last for forever. And so as things just feel like they're going to go up for forever, that is your signal to be harvesting gains, because it will reverse. Now, is this going to turn around? I don't know. There's not signals it's turning around yet. So this definitely gets a wait from me. But this was a great one for us to take a look at, just so you really just visually see over historical charts, like what goes up does not continue up for forever, especially when it's going contrary to the trend, which KASPA completely went contrary to the trend for quite a while. All right, let's take a look at AAVE. And yes, we are going to take a look at, where is that? We'll take a look at OMI, which was already suggested we take a look at, and DEVVE. Randy Chavez here with us. Good to see you, brother. Sale on with us as well. We haven't looked at Zcash today, and we have not yet done OMI, but we will. All right. So let's take a look at AAVE.
Yeah. So AAVE is in a consolidation, and one I actually like, because I think what we've got going on here is a lot of volatility. Normally that would be a topping sign, but it's too early in the trend for that to be a top. If we take a look at its position in the bigger picture, this to me is more of a consolidation, even though the swings are quite large. Now, we've got rising lows. If we look at the lows from here, they're all rising, and it's rebounded exactly where it should in order to keep that pattern intact. So I'm going to look at it from the point of view that this is the kind of low Rubicon line, and this is the kind of high Rubicon line. And what that means is that ultimately break of these two, significant bull market, significant bear market. But this is close enough to the low for it to be enough to play from a range point of view. So sometimes you look at risk reward and say, can you hide a stop and with a decent amount of with a decent risk reward, so that it's worth taking a trade. Now, in actual numbers or percentage, that's still a big percentage move. But even if it was just to stay within this range, a bounce from here into the middle of the range, or even like top mid, the top sort of 3/4 of the range, would still be quite a significant move. So there's an argument for playing kind of the short-term bounces, and that's why I like the look of the way this is trading, because it's also trying to compress, which is normally an indication longer term that this is getting ready to break out. Whether I'm inclined enough to jump in on something like this is another matter. So, it's either a wait or a buy. It's kind of within those, but it's a very small buy. It's not a trending buy. It's not a breakout buy like this was here. It's more, well, this could rebound into the middle of the range, and that's a fairly reasonable thing to do. And I can hide some stops in some reasonable places as well. So it's kind of a reasonable buy, but not enough. If I was being very specific and picky, which is what you really have to be, it's so easy just to take trades for the sake of it because they're in front of you. So yeah, on the basis of that, I'm kind of talking myself out of doing anything. But I do think it has potential to go back up, and I do like it. And as I say, as I said with some of the other ones, I like to come back to them. I definitely would like to come back to this because I think it is an interesting looking chart. We'll know pretty quickly whether it's going to work or not, because there's not much margin between where it is now and it's what I would consider to be a very important support line. We've had the collapse sell-off, we've had the rebound, we've had the secondary sell into that. Now I think we're going to get the true direction. So within the next couple of weeks, we'll know whether this is going to be a bull market or a bear market. So let's come back to it. But for them, yeah, I'm going to say it's a wait for me.
I think this is DeFi. What I like about AAVE is it's the DeFi canary in the coal mine, which is an indicator of when DeFi is going to run. And what I like about the chart here is it wants to run. So it ran up in late December last year. It came back down. It ran up again. And like Paul is saying, like, it's on the watch. I think DeFi is getting ready to run. I think in the short term, it does go higher again, even if this pattern doesn't break out to the high side, that it comes back up into this 330 range, at least continuing this kind of pattern. But I'm looking for DeFi at some point to break up really strongly upside. And then some of my smaller picks in the DeFi ecosystem will probably follow, but with much higher gains. So do I hold AAVE? No. Am I buying AAVE? No. Do I watch AAVE? Yes, because AAVE is an indicator to me of when the DeFi narrative is going to run. And it's not quite yet, but I think it's getting there. Now, if I were to look at this chart and I were just to make some projections, as they call in statistics, extrapolations, which means you're making a guess into data that you can't really see by looking at what's happened. Might be March of next year that this really runs. And though I think in the next month, it does start going to the upside. All right. Is it a buy for me? No. Well, if I were a short-term trader, it would be a buy for me. That's just not my gig. All right. Let's take a look next at XMR. That's the button.
Yeah, so XMR is so we were talking a while back about privacy coins, and I mentioned XMR because A, the chart looked really good, and B, I remember speaking with Manu years back about what privacy coins were, and he was telling me about Monero before I knew what a privacy coin was and why it's different to Bitcoin, because obviously we know that Bitcoin is pseudo-anonymous and Monero is completely anonymous. So it's interesting that this narrative has become apparently more important, and despite the fact that this has had a correction, the rebound is telling us that that's been jumped upon as an opportunity, and it's much closer to its most recent high and also to its all-time high than it is compared to some of the other markets, which are still getting ready, to turn around. I mean, if you look at this correction, that was fairly aggressive, and that was only August this year. And from that move, it has moved up very fast. So this space is, if nothing else, you blink and things can change direction in a really aggressive way, and that's a double-edged sword. It can be positive if the market's going against you and it turns around. It can be, negative if you're in profit and things go the other way. I think the other thing is that it can also lead to false hope as well, which is a problem. And it's very difficult to differentiate between false hope on something that's clearly just going to zero and a market that's in a corrective phase and getting ready to move back up. But the only thing that can be done to counter that is to look at lots of different markets and to be careful with money management. But when it comes to this, Monero for me, from when we last talked about it, and for now, is still in the buy category, mainly because the trend is nice, it's smooth, it's whilst it's volatile at the top, the lows are moving to the upside. The proximity to its recent high, as I say, and the all-time high is still relatively close, and it's, I think, something that with kind of AI and all this other stuff that can mimic people and do all sorts of other stuff, there may be more and more use for keeping things private and whether that's a strong enough reason or whether it's just because governments look to tax or whatever, I don't know. But either way, it's I'm not here to create a narrative for it. I'm just looking at the markets and saying, well, this is clearly what people are worried about, and they are more worried about that than they are about anything else, it seems, or there is some kind of big investment here. Over the next few months and maybe into next year, I would be looking for it to be in this sort of zone and potentially taking it out. Now, that doesn't guarantee it. I'm just saying that where we are now, the probability is pointing towards that. I don't own any, so I'm not talking my book. It's just the way the chart looks. So out of what we've seen, I think this is looking, interesting. And yeah, so let's come back and look at it again.
Yeah, this chart is definitely very interesting. It's coming up and retesting near its previous 2021 highs, and it's getting close to it. And I don't know whether it'll break up past it when it does hit it. Probably not is my guess. But this chart is looking like it, well, is getting close to that point where it hits its previous highs, probably tests it and comes back down some before it then breaks up. So it's one to watch. Privacy's narrative didn't super hit in 2021. As you see in 2021, it barely went above its 2017 highs. But that's because Gary Gensler's reign of terror at the SEC went after privacy coins completely. I mean, they hated regular crypto to begin with, especially privacy coins, even going after the programmers behind Tornado Cash in a very legally questionable move of prosecuting the programmers who programmed the code who, then they said, well, they programmed code that then other criminals used. And I don't know that that kind of prosecution ever had been done before. But that really put a big kibosh on privacy coins in general for the last time. But under Trump and the new SEC chairman, I think the privacy coin narrative is going to be quite embraced, and that in that environment, XMR is going to do really good. So we'll see how it plays out, but this is a large cap coin. I'm not holding it just because I don't. The only really large cap coins I hold are Cardano and Ripple. So do I like this one? Yes, I'm just not in the large caps, or I would have been buying it when it was down farther. At this high, I'm just watching this to see when the major bull run of, 2025, 2026 is going to happen. And a lot of these things are saying the bigger blow off top. They're saying to me the bigger blow off top comes first or second quarter next year. I think this comes up to highs, comes back down for a while, and then pushes above it. And here we are, November 2025. We've got essentially 1 month left in 2025. And I do think we have a good December 2025, but then probably just a retracement through the new year, the Chinese New Year. And then I think we're really off to the races. All right, let's take a look at OMI and see what that chart is looking like, because they've been running like crazy, and something I don't actually want to happen. I'll share why later.
So last week we were in this compression, which is unfortunately I wasn't able to speak about it. But what was interesting to me was everything's coming off. OMI wasn't coming off; it was going sideways. And if you look at this compression, it was after a strong move up. So what would normally happen is it would break out to the upside, which is exactly what's happened here. So that's clearly a positive sign. Now, once again, it's stopped at this key resistance point. So this is the kind of area where, well, it's got this big floor all the way up here as well to get to. But along the way, we've got this resistance point where it stopped, and it kind of ties into this area here. But it's still compressing again against this resistance. Even though it's come off, it's a couple of negative bars are fine as long as it stays in this zone. So what we've got really is what we've not been able to draw before, and that is I say before, we've had versions of this, but what we've got here is an upward trend. So we can put that in as an upward trend, and as long as it stays above that line, we can say that it is attempting to make a reversal. Now, there are degrees of that because there's still a lot of wood to chop all the way up to this level here, which is the main one where it's kind of out of the woods. So we're in the woods still, but it's fighting its way through. It's fighting its way through these woods, and we're getting through the levels. Now, I think by next week we should be seeing it in this area here, and if it's not, I at the very least want to see it above this trend line. So it's a small buy for me as long as it's over this line. I like the way it's performing because it is trying to turn around. This is not it's not a major breakout from an upside. There is a reversal pattern. So it's got all the technical hallmarks. There's probably a lot of fear around as well, which is good. This is what I want to see from a technical point of view too. But it's not shut your eyes and it's definitely going up, and this could still fail. So I don't want to give the impression that just because it's a technical buy for me that it's definitely going to go up, because it might not. But the probabilities are looking much better than they were, and it wouldn't surprise me now if it did actually start to accelerate, which is ultimately what I'd like to see. I'd like to see some further price acceleration. And judging by the short-term price action, it might will be ready to do that. So we shall see. But this is a key level here, as you could probably appreciate. When the market went up, tested it, there was definitely buying here. And then here, would have been buying again, and it broke through. So offloading around this short-term point is likely. And that's why I want to see how it bumps up against it. So if it spends a few days around here, pushing against that level, it's like pushing against a door and then suddenly it opens. I want to see if that's what's going to happen next. So in between, I think it's been doing some really interesting things technically, especially given how everything else has been selling off, and it didn't. So what we had there was what I call or describe as divergence. It was interesting that a previous weaker crypto asset is now actually holding its ground. So it's telling me that there's definitely some buying in there, or they're holding it up. And for what reason? And maybe we'll find out in the future whether there's something coming up. But technically, it was showing something that that was worth noting. So let's see how it plays out. I know it's disappointed in the past, so it's it's likely that people will be very wary of it, and that's completely understandable. But where it is now, it's looking good.
Yeah, generally at bottoms, people are very wary of things. At the bottom, they're the most wary. And so has it bottomed out for the cycle? Maybe. There's some indication that it has. So we are seeing what looks like some kind of turnaround. Now, fundamentally, I think OMI is extremely strong, but because of recency bias, like people are very scared. Like during the 2021 bull run, OMI was one of the biggest gainers during that run. And what swings too far the upside often swings too far the downside. And it has just been pretty much a downhill slide for 40 years. And people are just scared and numb to it turning around, though there are a lot of fundamental reasons. VeVe is doing some really, really big things. They've done even more to give OMI a use case, and some big announcements recently came out. Them being added to Kraken, so US buyers can more easily get access to OMI. That was recently announced. They're not yet added to Kraken. They will be soon. As well as their own collect chain for their collectibles to be on collect chain. That way, on their own collect chain, they can guarantee the royalties for the different IP brands, which was an important setup, right? So what we've seen on ETH is that there were ways to go around the royalty fees to some of the brands that had created NFTs. And that just wouldn't work with what VeVe has done with deals with Disney and Marvel and DC and other major brands. They need a way to they need to be able to guarantee that the brands get their royalty fees as these things change hands. And so they're launching their own collect chain, but with that, you will in the future be able to hold it on your own decentralized wallet, and while them still being able to make sure the licensors can get their fees as things trade. And so it created a huge win-win. I think they are setting up perfectly to be the major leader in the digital collectible space. And so the token behind it has long time been a buy on my book. And it still is. I just like buying low because one of the key principles of making money in any investment is buy low, sell high. And so here's my philosophy, and a lot of people don't agree with it. I think they don't agree with it because they don't yet understand it. Is I don't need the charts to start going up to tell me that it is a good buy. So in the short term, would I rather prices be up or down? Well, I'd rather them to be down. Why? Because I don't have as big bags of OMI as I would like. So why would I want it to be higher? That means for me to add more, I have to pay a higher price. Well, some people would prefer that because they want to feel like it's going the right direction. I don't care about my feelings on that. My feelings on whether it's I don't care about the feelings on whether the price is yet going the right direction. I care about my feelings on whether I think it's massively underpriced and whether my research says that this has high survivability with high potential for massive upside. That's what I like about OMI. It's one of my favorite buys in the whole of the crypto space. And so it's still a buy at this price. It's just not as juicy as it was. I mean, look how juicy it got here. This was so amazingly juicy, and it's now 2x above that price. And it's like, okay, is it still a deal? Yes. I mean, anything in this realm is an amazing buy. Even in this bigger realm is an amazing buy. It's just it was half off right here. And so I would prefer to see it go back down to that price point for the next 3 or 4 months. Now, do I think it will? I doubt that it will. Maybe. I doubt that it will. The bottom may be in for this cycle with OMI. All right, let's take a look at DEVVE. Do I think that this is a buy here? I love it as a buy. And I'm adding to OMI as other things do, even sometimes a little bit of gains. I'm sometimes taking profits there and rolling it into OMI because I love what the team behind OMI is doing. All right, let's take a look at DEVVE and look at the price action.
Yeah. So DEVVE here is, headline is it's still a wait for me. There's been some volatility and great that it's come off the low. I don't know if that's real, but I think we discussed that before, how even if it was, the prices didn't stick. Looks very, very suspicious. I don't know whether it really did trade up there, but regardless, taking that into account or discounting, I should say, the downward trend line is still coming in here and it's not through it, but it's still off the low. So that's kind of why we're in this neutral space. I'd prefer it not to have been lower than this low here at 33. It has briefly been there, but it's recovered. So for me, it's just a wait. It needs to get through this trend line properly, or make some kind of reversal pattern. This could be a downward spike, a low spike. It's got the characteristics of it, and that actually matched in with a spike sell-off in a lot of other markets that then recovered. So phase one, it's gone down, recovered. Usually you get a sideways period for a while and then it will go back up. So if that is what we think it is, it shouldn't trade anywhere near it or below kind of 31 cents. So that will be an area where I'd say if it's getting into that, it's kind of throwing off some danger signs. But for the moment, it's above that. So let's see how it plays out. But it's not giving me anything that makes me think immediately it's about to move. And I say that with also prefacing it with, we know that things can move extremely quickly in this space. So there's a chance it's going to be all the way up here by next week because that's how things are. But I'm not saying that's what I'm predicting. I'm just saying the nature of these altcoins is that there's just crazy volatility that can come out of nowhere. But right here, right now, it's just holding some fairly decent levels. And if it can go sideways, it would really change the technical picture going forward. But for the moment, it's still a wait.
Yeah. So there isn't a clear sign that the price is turning around on this. It's in this kind of move downwards, and there's not an indication that the bottom is in. Now, I have a different way of buying. I remember when this was happening, and it looked very, very scary, and it was just going down. But I also knew that the pre-sale investors were getting their tokens vested to them. And so this price decline made sense. And I was saying that I loved it down at these prices, especially as it got down below like 16 cents. I was just going crazy. This is a massively undervalued deal. It was then followed by this massive pickup like this. And then it's retraced back down to a higher low so far. It hasn't gone as far down as here. And it doesn't look like it's going to. I'd say it's probably pretty near the bottom, and it looks like it wants to go the other direction again. I rate this, or I like this very much as a buy. Even though I don't know that it's turned around yet, we don't have enough information there. I buy based on fundamentals, and I like where it's at strongly. Now, am I buying more of this? I am really heavy on DEVVE. I own a lot of it. In fact, right now it says where is it? Market cap is 34 million, total circulating supply 9.6 million DEVVE. Like, I own several percent of the supply of DEVVE. So I'm very high on DEVVE. So I'm not buying more of this right now. But yet, boy, this price is so juicy. It's a layer 1 blockchain with some of the fastest speeds in all of blockchain. And its market cap is at 34 million. And they have a big partnership, which has not been officially announced, with one of the major exchange partners, or their major exchange partners, one of the biggest exchanges in the world. And they've been talking about announcing who that partner is in Q4 of this year. And so, well, we're over halfway through Q4. That announcement hasn't been made. So as long as they don't delay it, that might be coming really soon. So back to this price. Shoot, wrong one. That's Definity instead of DEVVE. Back to this price. I think this is an amazing buy. Some people will pass it up. I think they will regret that. So, all right. Let's quick comments. Is that all of our suggestions? Yeah. Pretty much. Bumper, let me just address that. Wes. So Bumper does look dead in that there's not much going on from the team. They do put out kind of a few updates, seldomly through social media. I've invited them several times during the past year and a half to come join us on the channel, and they've been silent to me. So are they dead? Well, I use this analogy a lot because I've seen this in 2020 and 2021, was that I once watched this documentary on alligators and crocodiles, and it showed this crocodile that, or alligator, I don't remember which of the two it was. It was in this stream that was frozen over. And you could see the little snout sticking up above the ice, but pretty much this thing is frozen in the river and hasn't moved in months and months and months, and it seems like it is dead. But they time lapse it and then continue to film it into the spring when the ice melts, and guess what? That little alligator is alive and moving, and it just went into hibernation mode. Now, Bumper has already done their product. And I think their product could be like world changing, but I think they were running out of funds. And so I think they went into complete hibernation mode, which is a smart choice, just to try to survive. And I hope they do survive. Now, I own a lot of Bumper. I like the team a lot, but that doesn't mean it's a risk, early stage risky investment. And if it pays off, it might pay off super well. And there's a chance that it ultimately doesn't survive and does fail. Which of those two happens? I don't know. I am not buying more of it because I like to get a feel for the pulse of it, and they haven't come on and talked. So I don't know what the viability is. I don't know where they're at as far as money, and so what their likelihood of survival is. And there are other projects that are very price punished that I have a better bead on whether they're going to survive or not. And with Bumper, I just don't know. So I'm not adding to my position. If I did, it would only be coffee money, like $20 or $30 or $40 here and there. It would not be a sizable bet unless I had a better feel for, okay, they are likely to survive and there's some good things going on for them. And I just don't have that information. Even with the YouTube channel, they haven't been responding to me. All right. Paul, thank you for joining us today. I know the audience has loved having you here. Thank you
It's
for
great
that.
to be here. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. And for those of you in the United States who are sitting down to your Thanksgiving meals over the next few days, wishing you happy holidays and see you on the other side.
All right. We'll see you, Paul.
Thank you.
Paul's amazing, and he's been a true gift to have him here. I like the bigger goal of this channel was to help people in the crypto space that saw the value in crypto for life-changing gains, but were willing to learn how to look at it right, that wanted to become part of the 5% that make amazing gains. And everyone says they want that, but they aren't willing to do the things that will lead them to become part of that 5%. Because the big shift in that is a shift in thinking. So everyone wants to be part of the 5% that makes life-changing gains, but they want to be part of the 5% while doing what the 95% of people do that have terrible track record in crypto. And the reason they have a terrible track record in crypto is just because they're doing all the wrong things. And the reason the 5% make so much money is they're taking great risks to rewards. And they learn how to identify things so that they are taking risks versus rewards that add up in their favor. And you can't do that if you're acting emotionally, because the 95% act very emotionally and the 5% act very calculatedly, and they do not freak out when the 95% of people are freaking out. And recently, the last 3 weeks, 5 weeks, people have been freaking out. And the calm and collected 5% doesn't mean you don't feel it. It just means you don't do what your emotions are telling you to do. In fact, you're probably doing exactly the opposite. That's how you become part of the 5%, or I like to call you rainmakers. All right, enjoy our wrap, and we'll see y'all soon.
To the space, chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, you buy before you could. Was told to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I always make the time in mind. I stick the one out cause I'm patient like that. And I'll wait for the right time. I'll sell when it's high, I'll buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't leave with my heart. Principles are simple, to leave in a mark. Buy when it's boring, just gotta be smart. Sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling the parabolic and dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, the time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, to study and to know that nothing comes easy but with knowledge the game show. Sticking out this wrong cause soon will come a bear market. Learning and growing and when it's slow will be the target. They say it's come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. I'm strong like that, I'll let the others be predators. 2 years time the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go of the hate, let the haters be crapping. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I'll follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough. And that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.